Hey, Andrew, I just made you co-host, so you could share your screen.
Hello?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, I'm not used to Zoom.
that's fine.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I made you co-host, so that if you want to try to share your screen.
Okay. I was under the impression that I was going to just speak. I didn't make a presentation.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. Not a
Yeah.
big deal. Okay, sure.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's cool.
Do you want me to speak now or?
Oh no, so yeah, I'm gonna do the intro, and then we're gonna let
Okay.
everyone in, and then so we'll start at like 5:03, and
Okay.
I'll do the intro, and then we could go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just speak for 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. And then we'll do the
Okay.
Q&A. If students are going to ask you Q&A like right now during your presentation, you could answer, but the official Q&A session will be at the end of the.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
I just want to explain like working in Korea, both through my career, and then yeah, just do it. It's easier just for me to say it, I think. So
Sure. Yeah, not a problem. Okay.
okay.
Actually, yeah, I think it would be better just to start now. So I'll do the intro. So if Allyce and Kunzang and the other, the CIDC team, if you guys could please turn your cameras on, and then we'll start from Andrew to Kunzang to Allyce. And then so when it's your turn, please just automatically share your screen, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. I know that it's Thursday, 5 p.m. You guys are probably tired. You guys have full day of classes. So I want to thank you guys all for attending today's event due to International Education Week, hosted by the CIDC. Today's program is called Working Professionally in Korea as a Foreigner. Everyone should know that the Korean job market, it's hard for everyone, right? Whether you are Korean or foreigner, it's tough to really not just get into a company, but it's also tough to even adapt to just Korean work culture overall. So today we invited 3 speakers. They will be talking about their careers and just kind of the culture shocks that they experienced, and also just how they overcame, and they will also just give you some advice just so how you could adapt to your own career as well. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so whatever questions you may have, please take the time to ask these 3 professionals. I know that it's hard to meet professionals in the workplace, so please take advantage of this time. Okay, so without further ado, we'll begin. Our first speaker is Andrew Moreno. He is the talent acquisition partner at 09 Solutions, and he will be our first speaker. So Andrew, please go ahead.
Thank you, John. Yeah, nice to meet everyone. My name is Andrew Moreno. I'm the talent acquisition partner at 09 Solutions. I'm from the US originally, but I lived in Korea for 8 years. So when I first came to Korea, I joined a company that was on the military base because I happen to be American. So I worked there for 2 years. And then after that, I joined a recruiting company called Robert Walters. It's a British recruiting company. And I applied to that job just by cold outreach. So I contacted the regional APAC HR talent acquisition, and I sent her an email, and I just approached her directly, and that's how I got that position. And then after that, I worked there for a year, and then I joined a local Korean company, a recruiting company for 5 years. And I got that company through just my coworker joined and I followed him. So just as a personal recommendation, that's how I got that job. And then so after that, I had around 7 years work experience in Korea. So then I joined an international company called O9 Solutions. We provide AI software platform for different companies, work with Samsung. And I'm in charge not just of Korea, all of APAC, including China, Singapore, Thailand. And I'm doing it also based in Korea. So even though I'm based in Korea, I'm not just covering Korea. So they originally posted the position in Singapore, but um, I said it's the same, it's only 1 hour ahead. So I was able to get this position to be based in Korea. And that was just through applying on LinkedIn, but also messaging the HR manager and kind of explain my history. So my advice, it's hard, as John said, it's very hard to enter companies for not just for Koreans, but as for foreigners as well. And just keep in mind, I've had a job since I came here 8 years ago, and I don't speak Korean yet. I've been too busy to learn Korean. I don't even speak Korean, so I was able to get a position. Um, so I can give you some tips on getting position is I wouldn't just apply, like cold apply, send your resume, because the companies get so many applications, it's hard to stand out. It's even hard to, even if you have a really great resume, sometimes they just won't see it. So it's better to reach out directly, find the person, find their email, call them or email them your resume. So that's one tip. Another tip is if you do get a job, try to network, um, try to get personal recommendations. That's very important in Korea. If someone can vouch for you, I think the interview process is not so difficult if someone highly recommends you. Um, and another tip is try to find international companies because you can there are positions that will cover uh, all of Asia and you can be based in Korea. So sometimes if you don't speak Korean, there are there are positions available based on the geography and the time zone. So that's another tip that I can give you. And yeah, it all depends on the visa as well. Not many companies are willing to sponsor, but if you have the right visa, you could work, remotely as well. So yeah, there's many different ways. And I have a friend too. He's similar situation, similar background. He works at Samsung now, and that was just through networking. And he also doesn't speak Korean at all either. So I think networking is really important. Um, yeah, those would be my tips uh, so far.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yes, we've been trying to explain to the students that the more you network, the higher your chances can be later on when you do pursue employment, because obviously in Korea, referrals are very important. Right?
Yeah.
They're very strong. So good. Thank you. Thank you for your story and your advice. Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kunzang Namgyal from, he's a global marketing manager at Krafton. He will be sharing his story as well. So he's not from the States. So it's maybe his story is going to be a little different of how he got his employment. So let's all please welcome him throughout for his presentation.
Hi everyone. Are you able to see my screen? Is it clear? Okay. So today I'll just be talking a bit about how I came to Korea and what I'm doing at the moment. It's just a very casual talk, I think. So if you have any questions, you can ask me towards the end. Or if there's anything you don't understand from part of my presentation, please feel free to stop me at any time. I could speak a little fast at times. You can just remind me if there's anything you missed out. Okay. Why doesn't? Okay. What I'll be talking about today would just be a general introduction about what industries I worked for. In the past, I worked for the beauty industry or the skincare industry, and at present, I'm working at the gaming industry. So these are the two industries I'll be covering today. Apart from that, I'll also be talking to you about various interviews, some stuff that you should know while going to an interview and things you should keep in mind. And then I'll be taking questions, right? To give you a general introduction about myself, my name is Kunzang Namgyal. I come from a small state called Sikkim. It's in India. It used to be a country, and then it kind of like unified with India, I guess. So yeah, it's right now we are a part of India. After that, I went to New Delhi for my undergraduate studies, and after my undergraduate degree, I came to Korea to Yonsei University, where I graduated with a master degree. Then I went to work with the skincare industry, and then I moved to the gaming industry, where I'm currently working as the global marketing and communications manager at Krafton. If you don't know what Krafton is, I think Krafton is to explain you in an easier way. I think if you know the game PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, that's the game that Krafton created. It's called PUBG in short. I think many people are familiar with the game. So if you want to know, or if you have any questions that you might have missed out during the session, you can always feel free to catch me up on LinkedIn. I've left my LinkedIn ID down here. So I'll be talking kind of like summarizing my experience with the skincare industry. As you know, K-beauty is very big right now, especially with the Hallyu and the Korean wave that's going on across the globe. I think this is an industry that has a lot of potential for growth. I've listed some of the famous brands that are there in Korea and that currently would recruit a lot of people, especially foreigners. I'm not sure if there are a lot of foreigners in the audience, but yes, foreigners and Koreans in general. If you've had experience abroad, or if you are kind of like very familiar with English or any of the native language that the said brand is targeting, then I think you'll be of good use to the brand. There are just a few stuff that I'd like to share in regard to how these skincare companies work. You must always be ready to multitask. That's number one. I think in skincare industry, you don't go in like with the mindset that, oh, I'm going to do marketing and I'll only end up doing marketing. It's not like that. It's a lot of sales, marketing, and then editing and everything together. So there'll be a lot of stuff to do in the skincare industry in general. So you must be ready to multitask in that way. Also, the industry in general is very fast paced. You won't go on doing the same thing over and over again. I think it'll be continuously evolving, and also because there are a lot of changes in between, like to how the trend is, to what to your targets, to your set region, stuff like that. So you must be, I think, welcoming of change, and also you must be ready to kind of like embrace the changing market in general, right? Apart from that, there are other things that you should know, I think. You should know about the products in general. Like, for example, if you're going to a company, let's say Amore Pacific, and you're planning to apply for Innisfree, so you should know what their best-selling products are, and you should know what the company is famous for. I think that's kind of like the baseline, right? You should know what you're going to do, and if that particular company interests you, or if you're willing to work for that company, then you should know more about that company's products. I'll cover this in the interview section. I think we've had previous experiences where people would just turn up to the interview and not know anything about any of the products that we are selling, but they want to work in our company. So I think this is something that you should know in general. If you're a foreigner and wanting to work in Korea, it would be best to apply for a region that they are going to target. Let's say if you're an American and they're looking for an American wanting to work for that particular region or that particular local area, I think then you'd be a better suited candidate than the others. So in the beginning, you can try for roles that target your local region. Apart from that, you can also target other English-speaking regions, so that wouldn't matter. So yeah, just know the industry and also have basic information about the e-commerce market. Beauty and skincare industry is all about e-commerce. There are brands like, Amazon in the US. I think in Southeast Asia, we have Shopee, and then you have Lazada. You must have a brief idea about these brands and how you're going to market and sell in these brands, in these e-commerce sites. Apart from that, I think Korean language in general if you want to work in Korea, I would recommend you study and learn the Korean language. I'm not sure because I'm not familiar with having to work only with foreigners, because at some point of our experience working in Korea, I think we've all worked with Koreans only, I think. I'm not sure, unless you work for an embassy or some very, very outsourced company, then you might have a very foreigner only environment. But apart from that, I think I'd recommend you study the Korean language. It is, I think it's more than necessary. I think it will help you a lot, and it's going to be of good use. So please make sure you learn the Korean language if you're planning to work in Korea. I think for Koreans in general, you can just know Korean business level Korean. That would be kind of useful. Moving on to the gaming industry. This is where I currently work. It's kind of exciting because the gaming industry is very different from the skincare industry or any other industry in general. Also because this industry is developing and evolving faster than all the other industries, I think. If you're speaking about the industry itself, I think the revenue in terms of how much the industry earns is kind of high, and there's a lot of potential to grow. Even I think by 2025, like I've stated, like the growth is going to almost double. So it's a good industry to go into. I think most people, when you talk or when you kind of think about the gaming industry, you would probably think, oh, I'm not a developer, or oh, I don't know much about systems engineering, and not a computer science graduate and things like that. But you don't have to worry. Even in the gaming industry, there are people who are not computer science major, who haven't majored in computer science or are not developers. You can go in as marketers, you can go in as business in the field of business development and stuff like that. So if you have a general interest in gaming, or if you think that, oh, this is the industry I would want to go to, don't let that aspect stop you. Just go out there and make sure you apply for it. They have a lot of openings for marketing positions. I work in marketing. I'm not a developer. I don't know coding. So yes, you can do it. Just know that this industry in general is very exciting. It's very fun. To be honest, I think I really like working here, especially because you get to work on a lot of collaborations. You get to meet really big companies. Let's say you get to meet Coca-Cola, people from Coke and people from like Samsung and everywhere, because you're continuously doing collaboration. So while you're working on the job, you also get to meet people from other big companies that are like world famous companies, and you get to meet and do a lot of ideation talks and stuff like that. So it's going to help you grow a lot. Okay, I'm just going to keep note of the time. Might go on for too long. The other thing is, if you are looking to enter this industry, the baseline is that you should know gaming in general. You don't have to be a professional gamer. You don't have to go to the PC bang, to play game every day or something like that. But then you have to know what gaming is in general. You have to have like kind of baseline knowledge on how it works, and what are the marketing tools you can use, what are the marketing campaigns you can generally use for this industry. It doesn't have to be complex, but make sure you know a bit about the industry in general. Also know that this industry, unlike other Korean companies, is very flat based. There's no hierarchy in general. Like for me, my colleague has 10 years of professional experience, but then we're at the same level, as in like we work as colleagues, not as a senior or a junior. There's no hierarchy in general. So it's very free that way. You get to share your ideas, you get to continuously give feedbacks, and you get to have a very, I think, free flow of ideas, the environment. Yeah, to put it in, to summarize it, I think it's very good for the free flow of ideas. Also, this industry gives you good benefits. I think companies like Nexon, Netmarble, I'm sure John knows a bit, Netmarble, Nexon, NCSoft, these companies give really good benefits. So if you can get into these companies, I think you should go for it. Krafton is another good company as well. So please go for it. And this industry, if you're interested in gaming industry, I think, yeah, it has high potential for growth. That's what I have to say. This is another part I thought I'd kind of address and make sure that you'd be prepared. We had a few people come up for interviews in the past, and I think saw that those mistakes are something people taking an interview should not make. You can't turn up for an interview blank, right? You might have a lot of knowledge about yourself and about what you're going to do, but if you're going for an interview, you should study a bit about that company. It doesn't have to be in depth. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to know the founding father of the company, this and that, but you should know the basics. Like I said earlier, like for skincare companies, you should study their website. You should go to their Instagram and to their Facebook, and to for the present day, you can go to their TikTok accounts and see what is best selling, right? And make sure you know them, because they will ask you, right? How are you going to market these products? What is your idea about our products, this and that? So you should know it. Same likewise for gaming industry, you should know each company has their own principles, like creativity, or they're talking about innovation, you know. You should make sure you go through the website and see what their key principles are, because in gaming industries in general, they're going to ask you what key principles the company runs on, right? That was one interview question for me as well. You should also know a bit about the game in general, because gaming companies usually have lots of games. They have like maybe 10 or 12 games, but they have top 2 or 3 games they actually concentrate on, right? They get their revenue from those games. So make sure you know those games, and you've had 1 or 2 gameplays at least, so you're familiar with the game or with the service in general. Also be very flexible. Don't tell them that, oh, I'm only going to do marketing, so I'm not going to do anything other than marketing. So be very flexible. Tell them that you're open to learning, and that you're open to kind of like taking challenges and things like that. I think that's a very general thing, and I'm sure you would probably know about it. The other thing is, if you don't know something, don't beat around the bush. Just tell them that you don't know it. The best answer would be, oh, I'm not sure about it, but I can find out what the correct answer is and get back to you after the interview if you wish. That is, I think, something you should tell, because if you just beat around the bush, they would know that you're just covering up something you don't know, right? So be honest, tell them you don't know it, tell them you'd get back to them after you find out more. Yeah, that's about it for the interview. These are just some skill sets you should know for the job, I think. If you're a foreigner living in Korea, there's a free language program called the KIIP program. It also helps you with your visa. So please make sure you know this if you're a foreigner or an expat living in Korea. This is, I think, necessary. Apart from that, if you're looking to get a job in any of the industries at the moment, I think some of the essential skill sets would be knowing a lot about UA, what analytics, UA analytics in general is, and also some marketing case studies, what you can do, influencer marketing and stuff like that. Yeah. So thank you so much. That's about it, I think. I hope I covered some few things here, and I hope it's useful to you. So we'll take questions towards the end, I think. I'll pass over to Allyce.
Thank you, Kunzang. I really enjoyed your advice. When you do go to the interview, whether it's cosmetics, gaming, e-commerce, fashion, anything, especially for marketing, they'll ask you, right? What did you think of our recent marketing campaign? They may even ask you, who is our competitors, right? What do we do better than them? So very good advice. Always be prepared. And all this stuff, they may even ask you the company's mission, vision, values, and that's all on the website. So make sure you study the company's website and also their social media if you can. So we save the best for last. We have Allyce Best. She is the English editor and proofreader at Tapitoon. So Allyce, please go ahead and share.
Okay. Okay, are you able to see my presentation?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So hello, everyone. My name is Allyce Best, and I'm a US citizen who's working here in Seoul. I'll save more of my introduction for the end of my presentation, actually. So I think that everyone has some knowledge of what it's like to work in a Korean company. We all know about the hierarchy. We all know about the team building, pretty much basic. But I think that besides just knowing about these aspects of working in a Korean company, it's important to know where you fit and how you can adjust to working in this type of environment. And I try to think about what are some reasons that in the end people are either pushed to leave or they decide to leave themselves due to this type of work culture. And I would say that it's all about inconvenience. So either the employee themselves felt so inconvenienced by the work culture that they decided to leave, or the team and the company ended up feeling inconvenienced by that worker, and so they were asked to leave. And so one thing that I wanted to cover today is overcoming your inconveniences and making sure that you can have a smooth transition into the Korean work culture. As far as how I've organized those inconveniences, first I'm going to talk about work conduct. And some of the things might seem straightforward, but I can say that once I got into the company, I saw many people struggling with these things and maybe even have to leave because of these things. So I don't want that to happen to you, and I want to share about these points. The next thing that I want to talk about is work environment. So basically navigating the hierarchy system and also how to deal with the different team building events that might take place if you're not necessarily comfortable with those team building events. And finally, I want to tell you one of the ways that I think you can avoid both becoming an inconvenience and being inconvenienced by your experience working in Korea. Okay, let's start out with work conduct. So I'll have a lot of stories in my presentation actually, but the first thing I want you to know is that in Korea, most companies nowadays have what is called Suzukiban, or the probationary period. So this is usually about 3 months that you'll be not necessarily tested, but kind of watched over to see if you're a good fit for this company. So it's kind of a trial run, both for you and for the company. But what you'd be surprised to find out is that there are a lot of good workers with really impressive credentials as far as what schools they graduated that actually are not asked to stay as a permanent employee after the Suzukiban. And this comes down a lot to work conduct. And so let me start my first story, which is about greetings. There was once an employee in my company who didn't greet someone in the hallway, and that person ended up being the CEO of the company. So one day, everyone in the office got an email about how it's very important to greet people and how it's more mannerly to do that in Korean culture. Another time, a teammate of mine was scolded by the team leader because she had not greeted the rest of the team when she arrived to work. And I can completely understand why she didn't do this. The office was often like dead silent, so it could be very awkward to have to say your greeting when you arrive in the morning. But I think that this is a very, very simple thing, and it's a very silly thing to get in trouble for later. And I will add that the people who actually got in trouble about this greeting thing were not foreigners. They ended up being Koreans. So I think even though greeting people and bowing to people is very much a part of Korean culture, once you get into the workplace, things that seem like normal Korean culture can kind of end up feeling awkward, especially if other people around you aren't doing it. But I would say that it's just the mannerly thing to do, and you don't want to get in trouble for this later. So please always remember to greet the rest of your coworkers at work. Moving on to punctuality, I had another coworker who ended up getting scolded by his team leader about punctuality, but it wasn't that he was showing up late. It was actually that he was leaving 5 to 10 minutes early. And I could understand his logic again. He talked to me after, we're both American, and his logic was that if he had finished his work already, why should he stay 5 minutes more? What would he be able to accomplish in those 5 minutes? And I agree, there's not much that you'd probably be able to accomplish in 5 minutes if you started it at the last 5 minutes of work. But Korea is a very by the book work environment. So what your contract says is pretty much law. Even if you've come in earlier than your required work hours, you can't leave earlier just because you came earlier. You still have to stay until the time frame in your contract. And this can be very hard for some people to understand, but I would say that the best thing you can do is follow the status quo of your workplace. So if you don't see other people who are leaving early, you don't see other people who are coming in late, and you don't see other people who are taking lots of breaks, then you probably don't want to do that either. Or you should ask your coworkers if that's okay or what they would think about that, so that you don't end up getting in trouble like my coworker did. Next, I want to talk about meetings, and I think that this one is very important for the younger generation. When you go to a meeting, you should always make sure that you bring a notebook and a pen. And I know that nowadays it seems more intuitive to take notes on your laptop or take notes on your phone. But what I saw pretty often at work is that this ends up making it seem like you're not listening to what's going on in the meeting. So it's better, and it gives you the impression that that person is more engaged when they're looking at the presenter and actually physically writing their notes down. Another reason that I would say to take notes is because as a foreigner specifically, what I found when the meeting was over, if the room became silent and no one had anything to say, I was often the one that was called on. And I think that there's two reasons for this, both a positive and a negative. The positive, in my opinion, I'm just guessing, is that foreigners tend to be more outspoken and more willing to share, sometimes even if they shouldn't share. So I think that my team leaders and other bosses might have been using me as a way to get the conversation started. But if I had not been listening, or if I hadn't taken notes, then I would have been caught on the spot. I wouldn't have been able to say anything. So it's really important that you do listen, no matter how boring the meeting is, and no matter how much it doesn't actually relate to your work, because you never know if you're going to be the one that's called on. Moving back to the people who are in their Suzukiban period, or the probation, I am certain that other people are watching how you conduct yourself during that time and judging how you conduct yourself, because they're trying to decide whether they think that you should stay on as a permanent employee or not. So looking like you're not listening is going to be a very crucial mistake. Also, even if you are listening, not having anything to say could also be considered not engaged with your work and not passionate about your work. So even if you're new and you don't have anything to add, I would say that as long as you could say something like, oh, I liked your point, or oh, I didn't understand this point that you made, but I don't want to disrupt the meeting, so can I ask you about that after the meeting? Saying stuff like that shows that at least you're engaged and at least you're interested in the work that you're doing. So don't feel like just because you're new that you don't need to say anything, or that you don't have anything to say. You can always say something to show your initiative. The last point about work conduct I saved for last, because it can be kind of foreigner specific to talk about language and language barriers. I tried to make it well-rounded. But in general, I would say that nowadays, it's very rare that you'll be able to get through your work 100% without having to speak Korean. So even if the employment listing said no Korean required, or even if it said that the level of Korean that's required is pretty low, even if your work doesn't require it, you're going to need to communicate with the rest of your coworkers, or at some point communicate with someone who might not speak English. And having to call your coworkers to interpret for you or translate for you is going to make you seem like an inconvenience, which is the overarching point of the presentation. You don't want to be an inconvenience to the rest of your team. So the most important thing, I think, is to show your effort. You don't need to be worried about going into the job not knowing Korean, but it's good to show your coworkers that you acknowledge that you don't speak Korean and that you're putting effort into learning little by little. And as far as the Korean staff, I've seen people struggle the other way. Maybe they've gotten a job and the job requires them to speak English. And even if your English skill is very high, you might not be used to doing things like writing reports in English or writing emails in English. And having to call your coworkers in that case, again, is causing an inconvenience for them. So as far as my advice, if you have to ask your coworkers for help, which of course you should do, make sure that you're taking note of the types of edits that they've made to your work. So if you have to write a report and they've checked over your report, compare what you wrote to what they wrote and see what kinds of things you can improve on next time. Or if you have to write a type of report that you've never written before, you can ask them if they have any examples of such a report. So you can look over it first before you start writing, do your best, ask them to check it for you, and then improve after that. And again, this can be done whether it's English, whether it's Korean, or whatever language you have to do your work in. The important thing is to worry about your image and worry about showing the rest of your staff that you are someone who puts effort into your work and into improving every step of the way. I've been working in Korea for 3 years now, and although I have a high level of Korean, I'm still learning Korean in my work every day, and I'm still having to ask people for their input every day. So never feel like your ability is like at its peak. You can always improve. So some of those things might have seemed straightforward, but again, I've seen a lot of people end up not getting the permanent employment because of the way that they conducted themselves during work, because people were watching. So just make sure that you keep those things in mind. Moving on to work environment, these are things that I think caused an inconvenience to the workers. So it's not that they were doing anything wrong, but that the style of work and the work environment maybe caused them some stress, so they ended up leaving. But I want to give you some tips on how you can deal with those things. The first is, of course, hierarchy. We all know about hierarchy when it comes to Korean companies. And I want to give a backstory of my experience with hierarchy with a story. I also worked in marketing before in the cosmetics industry, and there was a time when I had to make an influencer contract. And I had originally suggested that we go with a base rate of $10,000 and a commission of 30%. However, my manager suggested that we go with a base rate of $8,000 and give 50% commission. So just listening to the story, maybe you would think like, oh, that sounds like a bad deal. And I also thought that that sounded like a bad deal. But my manager said that that's the deal that I have to make. And so I just, 네, 알겠습니다. 그렇게 하겠습니다, and did what I was told. In the end, we lost a lot of money, but this is how it can happen. Maybe you have a lot of ideas to share, or maybe you have been told to do something that you personally don't agree with. In a hierarchical system, sometimes you don't get to do the thing that you wanted to do, and you don't get to say or suggest the thing that you wanted to say or suggest. As far as how to deal with this, I think that you have two ways that you can go about this. The first is to work for a company that you really believe in. So the Suzukiban is for the company to review you, but it's also for you to decide if this is the right company for you, if this is a place that you want to work long term. So during that period, you can watch and see what kind of decisions your higher ups make, what kind of things management says, and you can decide if the company is right for you. And if it is, then in this hierarchical system, you'll be much more likely to accept the things that are being said, and you'll have a lot more to learn. So you just listen and learn and absorb, and one day, ideally, you'll rise up to a higher position where you can start to share your ideas and kind of control your own work. The other option is to just completely avoid a company that has a hierarchical system. And although we like to think that all Korean companies have that, as Kunzang said earlier, not all companies do. There are companies that have a flat system of management. So if you think that a hierarchical system is not going to work for you, then you can try to seek out these companies that have a flat management system. Finally, as far as work environment, I want to talk about team building. And this is mainly just haeshik, but there are other types of team building like team trips, or some companies have like team sports days. So they'll play soccer or something together. Sometimes these things are planned in advance, so you can set your schedule, but other times they come up suddenly. So the manager just decided that you're gonna go have dinner and you're gonna go have dinner. But I know that this can be very stressful, especially if you don't drink or if you're more introverted, so you don't talk a lot. This can be maybe your worst nightmare about working in a Korean company, but I want to give you some tips about how you can deal with those things as well. First, for the non-drinkers, I would say if you don't drink, find your place at the table. So maybe you can keep an eye on other people's drink, pour their drink. If they're running out of water, pour them some more water. If you've gone to like a meat restaurant, you can be the one that's cooking the meat. Just stay busy so that you are actively engaged in the event. And if you're not a talker, then I'm sure someone in your team is a talker. So it's good to ask that person a question to get them talking, so then you can still look like you are engaged, even if you're not necessarily the life of the party. If you are good at singing, a lot of the times the heshik will end up being in a norebang. So that's when you could have your time to shine. You can sing a lot of songs, get other people singing. The point is, just be active somehow. You don't have to be the drinker, you don't have to be the talker, but you can find a way to get through. I remember I have a coworker who doesn't like to drink, so she'll always sit next to me. So if we're playing some game or having some talk, or somebody told us that we should drink, I'll take her drink for her. And I mean, that worked out for us. Sometimes the next day she'd buy me a coffee to say thank you. So there's always a way around it. That's the point. Just think about how can you get through without feeling like you're suffering through the night. Finally, I want to tell you the biggest piece of advice for how you can avoid being inconvenienced or feeling like an inconvenience. And this is one of the most important things I think anyone has ever told me, and that's that job hunting is a two-way street. So while you are going to your interviews and trying to get a job, of course, you're trying to appeal to the employer, but the employer should also be trying to appeal to you. They have to sell themselves to you. So fortunately, nowadays, there are apps like Job Planet and Blind. So you're able to see the opinions of the current or former employees to the company. You can find out what they thought about it and what kind of things they liked and what kind of things they didn't like. And you can think about if that's the ideal company for you. So let's say you have trouble showing up to work on time or sticking to a set schedule. You can find a company that has flex hours, so you can start and finish at the time that's convenient for you. Some companies do this on a daily basis, some companies do this on a weekly basis, but the point is you can find out. And let's say that you don't want to work in a hierarchical system. Again, you can find a company that has a flat management system. Let's say that you don't want to do a lot of team building, or you don't want to do a lot of overtime. You can check in advance what people said about these companies, and you can try to avoid the ones that are known to have a lot of hashik or overtime. So just don't feel like you have to go whatever's out there. You have a chance to find out about the company and try to get into a company that matches your ideal workplace as much as possible. So although the Korean work culture can seem kind of scary, there's a place out there for everyone. So just try to find your workplace. So I hope that at least one thing that I had to say reached each of you and will give you a smoother transition into entering a Korean workplace. I think the Q&A session is after me, but if you still have more questions after today, you can feel free to add me on LinkedIn. You can just search my name, and I don't think there's a lot of Allyce Best out there, so I should pop up. I also recently started a YouTube channel, and I started this channel actually like specifically to help people to find a job. So I've made videos about how to get a part-time job in Korea, how to get internships in Korea, and how to get full-time jobs in Korea. And I talk about it more in depth. So if that's something that you're interested in, I hope that you'll check out my channel, but no pressure. Thank you, guys.
Okay, wow, thank you, Allyce, for that great advice. Really, the part where you mentioned about the hierarchy with your manager regarding that contract and losing the money, yeah, that's just reality. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to listen to your manager. But nowadays, a lot of the companies, especially the bigger conglomerates, they're trying to lose those hierarchical titles and try to have more collaborations within the employees. But who knows, right? So, well, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. You could DM or you could even, just say it in the mic. But we'll start. I'll start it off, and then we'll go in the order of Andrew to Kunzang to Allyce. What was your biggest, or what is your biggest, what the heck moment, right? And during your time working in Korea. Okay, so if I begin, my what the heck moment is, since Korea is so collective, right? You do everything together, where in the States working, you're more individualistic, right? So you eat lunch by yourself, you want to do stuff by yourself, you go home by yourself and stuff. But in Korea, you pretty much have to eat with your team, right? And if you don't eat with your team, they kind of they'll ask you why. And let's just say you're on a diet or you want to eat something else, it doesn't really look good for you, right? So now since COVID, it's a little different. But yeah, that was my biggest what the heck moment, because I just want to eat by myself. I don't want to eat with my team every day, right? So that's mine. So let's start off with Andrew. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say it's similar, actually. Eating lunch and just following in line. I'm kind of, yeah, like I have American mindset where I'm very individualistic. So I sometimes, probably most of the time, I didn't follow others. So I was always kind of a weirdo. So, but I got kind of a pass because I'm not Korean, and they just think, oh, it's just that weird foreigner. Like everyone's going to the same lunch, but I'm like, oh, I'm on a weird diet. So you guys go. I'm gonna stay here, and then people just got used to it. Maybe they thought it was rude, but I just kept doing it. But yeah, sometimes, yeah, I had the same moment where I'm like, I don't want to follow in line. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Kunzang, how about you?
I'm not sure if I had a what the heck kind of moment, but then yeah, I think in general, what I would say would be just being able to express what you are thinking. In Korea, you can't express your mind out that freely, I think. If there's a meeting like this, like we have several companies together, it will be one person talking, and that person will be the senior most. And there will be no other opinions that would be generally shared, I think. Or if you've shared an opinion, that would go through that person, I think. Yeah, so it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's exactly bad, but then, yeah, sometimes as a foreigner, you would feel kind of like stressed about it, because I think foreigners are more known to express their opinions, I think, and to let it out there what you think. I felt the same as well at several meetings where there was no opportunity for me to talk, I think. Yeah, those are the times you kind of feel, oh, what the heck is happening? I should be able to express myself. But then, yeah, I think that's something that would happen in Korea, but I think you'll learn to accept it. And there are ways how you can go around it. Maybe the first meeting, it will be like that, but after that, it will generally be passed down to you. So you can lead the next meeting or something like that. So you don't have to worry about it. Just be open to learning. That's what I would say, to prevent that stress from hitting you. I think you should be open to learning, and you should be very accepting of the culture, because it's your choice, to come and work in Korea, to come and work in a different culture with a different language. So you should be very open to learning and very open to accepting things. So that will help you a lot.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Next.
So I think, again, everyone knows about nunchi in Korean work culture, but I think sometimes I didn't realize like how far it was going to go. And so something that ended up surprising me is that sometimes the team leader in my previous company and even in my current company will say things like, oh, you can't do that because what are the other teams going to think of our team? And for me, that was very strange, because when I worked in the US, there was never such a time where our team cared what a team that we don't even work with will think about us. But I think it just like reiterates how in Korea, everyone's kind of watching everyone and not judging everyone, but like everyone is very aware of each other in the workplace. And so it kind of puts this pressure on you to think about everything that you're doing, because it could reflect on your team and then it could reflect back on the company. So, I mean, there's nothing that was so huge that I think like I need to particularly mention it, but it's something that I remember from my work experiences that oh, I need to be aware of everything around me right now, because somebody might see, somebody might say, and then suddenly our team is like this or that reputation. So just something to keep in mind when you're working. You have to be aware not only of yourself, or like how things reflect on yourself, but how things are going to reflect on your team as well. You have to be even more of a team player than you might have realized.
Cool, thanks. If anyone else has any questions, please go ahead and feel free to ask.
Oh, yes, I have a question. Thank you for the wonderful lectures. For me, I have to go to the Salt Lake City, our main campus, and graduate. So I don't know if I can make friends there and adjust. So were there any problems, like cultural problems, when you guys try to make friends in Korea?
Good. Yeah, we'll do the same order, Andrew, Kunzang, and Allyce.
Yeah, I think one problem with making friends is I don't speak Korean very well. So I had some coworkers that I really like them, but they can only speak a little bit of English. But I just figured it out, and it actually helped my Korean to improve and help their English. So I think sometimes maybe people are afraid to talk to you because of the language barrier or culture barrier, but I think just be outgoing and talk to someone, and they'll feel less nervous. So yeah, you got to just approach people.
Okay, next.
I have a
I think.
question.
Oh,
Oh,
you
sorry,
want to
go
go ahead?
first.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, let's have Kunzang and Allyce answer, and then you can answer.
Okay, I'm just going to keep it brief. Because I went to school in Korea and did not directly go to work as an expat, but I went to school. So my making friends part is a bit different, because when you're at school, you're going to do a lot of activities together. So you would definitely end up making friends. I came to Korea not knowing a single word of Korean. All I knew was 안녕하세요 and 감사합니다. But then, yeah, I ended up making a lot of friends who helped me learn the language and kind of helped me overcome the language barrier that was there. Also with a lot of effort from my end as well. If you're very shy and you don't want to, kind of directly take on that challenge, you should try at least once, because I think once you overcome that barrier, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So, but in the workplace in general in Korea, it's not about making friends. I think you're just there to work and you're just going to get your work done. They are colleagues, not your friends. So that cultural difference would exist. You can be friends with your colleagues. I've made one of my best friends as my colleagues are some of my best friends in Korea. So you can do that. But then in general, I think the general principle is you stick to the colleague kind of rule. So I think that summarizes my experience.
Cool. Next, Allyce.
So living in Korea is actually my second time to live in a country besides my home country. Before coming to Korea, I lived in Japan. And in that case, I went there for work. For Korea, I came here for school at first. I would say that the most important thing is not to wait for someone to talk to you. So I've seen several times, like maybe there's someone who's kind of shy and they're just sitting and hoping that somebody's going to talk to them. But especially if you're entering an environment where people already know each other, then the chances that they're going to approach you might be lower, because from their perspective, they don't necessarily need to, unless they just decided to be nice. So I would say that you should be prepared to approach people. If it's someone next to you at the desk, then you can just try to ask them a question, or you should start with introducing yourself and just try to strike up a conversation. If it doesn't work the first time, or if you just feel like there could have been more that you said, try again another time and try to find something that you guys have in common. Maybe you don't have anything in common, then you move on to the next person. But again, just try to be outgoing and don't sit back and wait for someone to come to you. Go just talk to as many people as you can about anything that you can, and maybe don't put a lot of pressure on it the first time to be friends with this person, but just to build up some relationships and slowly get closer to people. And before you know it, then you'll have some friends.
Cool. I know that Young had a question. Go ahead.
Yes. And first, thank you for your good lecture. And I have a question about what is the most important things in the company's interviews?
Okay, Andrew, please go ahead. You're muted.
Sorry, apologize. Yeah, from my perspective, at my current company, the most important thing is doing the research about the company, just having a grasp of what the company is and explain how you can bring some value to the company. And I think that's probably the most, and also just being persistent. Maybe you applied and they didn't get a response. I would say just keep emailing, not spamming, but also just showing why you're really interested. So research, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Next.
Yeah, I'll take over quickly before we run out of time. The thing is, for interviews, I think in general, you should do a background study like what Andrew said. I think you should know the basics of the company. You should know what the company is doing, what they're servicing, right? Apart from that, when you answer questions, make sure you personalize the experience. Like if they ask you about marketing, make sure how you're going to involve yourself in that role, right? Because everyone's going to go and look up on Google how to answer the question, right? But if you are going to personalize the answer according to how you would do it as a person, that would be different. You would stand out and of course be unique, right? That would mean like let's say you do a lot of TikTok or you do a lot of Instagram, right? You see opportunities there for marketing, right? You express those ideas, I think. Make sure that you personalize your answer, right? And if you don't know something, like I said earlier, don't go beat around the bush. Just tell them directly that, oh, I'm sorry, I do not know about this, but I will make sure I get back to you after I study a little more on this. If it's okay, can I send you an email after the interview? That would show that you're willing to learn, right? If you don't know something, that would show that you're willing to accept that you don't know it and kind of willing to learn, right? That is an important thing. The last important point I would say would be, wait, I forgot what I was thinking. Okay, let's keep it at that too. I'm keeping a check at the time, so yeah. Yeah, so make sure you know the basics of the company. Make sure you answer properly. Make sure it's very genuine. Make sure it's very personal. That you can make an impression on that person, right? Because first impression counts, and especially in interview, you don't get a second chance, right? What you say at the interview is final. And make sure you're very honest. And yes, the last point was make sure you're open to learning. Make sure you're very flexible, that you're not only going to go there and do one thing. Make sure you show them that, oh, if I can't do this, I'm willing to learn. Because everyone, like a fresher, doesn't go in with an experience, right? That's not something they're looking for too. They're looking for people who are positive and willing to learn. If you don't know the culture, if you don't know the language, if you don't know something, the software or the service, tell them, oh, I'm willing to learn. I'm ready to go into the company and learn, and you can tell me how to do it in the best way, and I'll make sure I learn in the fastest time and make sure that what I do is good, right? That's something you should put out there, I think. Yeah, I'll pass on to Allyce.
Okay, so I think that there are two things that I would recommend that you do during an interview. The first is to show what you are able to do. So for example, I'm a foreigner and I'm applying to Korean companies, and maybe the interview is actually 100% in English. They didn't ask me to speak Korean to answer the questions, but that's my opportunity to show that maybe I'm able to do something that the other candidate can't do, and that might be useful to the company later. So if I found an opportunity, I just decided that I'm going to speak Korean at this moment in the interview, just to show like, oh, by the way, I have this skill that you might not have thought about. And I think that the same can work for a Korean applicant. If the job requires English, sometimes actually the interview is not in English and they didn't ask you to speak English in the interview. And you might be surprised by that because they said that the job requires English. But even if they didn't ask you, I would try to find some kind of opportunity to slip in that you are able to say something or answer something in English. The second point I want to mention is that you really need to listen. Unlike in the US, for example, in Korea, the interviews are usually group interviews. So there will be two other people in the room with you who are also answering the same questions as you. And the reason I say that you should listen to their answers is first, so that you don't say the exact same answer as what they just said. If you're not the first person that's answering, that can be very embarrassing and also look like you didn't have an answer. The second reason is in some interviews, the interviewer will actually ask you what you thought of the previous person's answer. But if you didn't listen to their answer, you don't have an opinion about what they thought. And if you try to answer it, it will show. So just make sure that although you'll be very nervous and you'll be trying to think of your own answer, be sure that you're also listening to the answers of your competitors in the interview.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's 6 p.m. So I know that it's your dinner time, right? So we will be ending today's program, today's event right here. I first off want to thank Andrew, Kunzang, and Allyce for taking the time out of their busy schedule to come and share with us, their, just stories and just advice about just how to survive the Korean workplace. Okay. So, and for anyone who wants to get in touch with them, please find them on LinkedIn, right? Type in their names on LinkedIn. You could send a friend request. You could even send them a message saying, hey, I attended your session today. It was very helpful, thank you, and stuff like that. It's all about growing your network out here in Korea, right? And also, if you want to get a 5,000 won Starbucks gift card, please email uac-careers@utah.edu about a reflection about what you learned, 3 to 5 sentences, and then we'll go ahead and take care of it. Okay, thank you guys once again, and we'll call it from here. Okay, have a good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.